Welcome to another episode of WTF Cinema.
Aaron Eckhart then shows our token hot chick that he's developed this technology that can see through lead. This is how they're going to pilot, because it can see through the rocks. He's still fine-tuning it a bit. So she walks over, twists some knobs and levers, and he's like, hey, don't touch that. This is very sensitive equipment. And then, boom. She's made it work better. She's not only the youngest, brightest pilot in the universe, she can also fiddle with extremely experimental technology that never existed before and improve upon it. She is Mrs. Deus Ex Machina. Glad to have her on the team. Of course, it's not a Hollywood disaster film unless we get to blow up some expensive-looking models, so, giant super static storm hits Rome! Kaboom! Our heroes begin drilling to the center of the Earth. I keep hoping they'll run into Silurians along the way, but no luck. Speaking of, wasn't there a Doctor Who episode from like the third Doctor where scientists drilled to the center of the Earth and they all went insane? Do you guys mind if I go watch that instead? No? I gotta... Because there's a... They come across an unexpected open pocket of air inside the mantle. So of course, as soon as they puncture it, they just start dropping. Here's the thing though, they make a big deal to make sure that we understand that inside the craft are these gyroscopic stabilizers so that they don't have to be pointed straight down the whole time even though they're drilling down. It says they will always be facing forward, right? When they punch through, they're all strapped in and they're dangling from the straps. Yeah, the gyroscopic stabilizers should make you float upward. You should be facing like this, free-falling upward. Even if the free fall is going to affect the stabilizers, wouldn't it tilt you upward so you'd be looking up and being pushed back into your seat? Somebody needs to check their physics on this one. The ship gets jammed up on some crystals, so the crew goes out to try and cut the ship loose. Goes out. And the mantle, where the pressure and heat would pretty much just make you implode immediately. Luckily, they're wearing implosion-proof suits. They don't say that, but we have to assume. While trying to cut through the crystal with a cutting torch, because the super laser won't do it, but a cutting torch will, magma begins to come down through the hole they just traveled through. The magma apparently was just waiting up there for 10 minutes before it started coming through, giving them time to get ready, I guess. It was stealth magma. So we're also not going to address the fact that they just drilled through the ocean. So the entire ocean should be emptying into this long tube that they're making straight to the core. And I think emptying the ocean would cause a lot more problems than the EM field would. Lastly, when they're all panicking about the magma flow, one of the scientists calls it lava. Hey, best and brightest scientist in the world, whose knowledge of geology is really the only thing that's going to keep us from our death and destruction. Let me help you out a little bit here. If it's above ground, it's lava. If it's underground, it's magma. I'm not a scientist. I know this. You probably should too. Unfortunately, a small rock lands on the head of the chief pilot, which not only goes through his helmet, but like into his head, and he dies. The suits are implosion-proof, but you drop a nickel on this guy's head, he's gonna die. They're that sensitive. Unfortunately, without that pilot, all we have left to pilot the craft is the best, brightest, super genius pilot. Whatever will we do? Long story short, Aaron Eckhart offered up his air supply in order to keep the torch cutting. So he wakes up, and he's told, hey, the ship's moving again. When he wakes up in the med bay, everybody's around him. Hey, we're moving again. There ain't nobody behind the wheel. Then a couple of people leave to go sort things out, but the pilot stays behind. One chance at this. We're moving. We ain't got nobody behind the wheel. How the hell does that happen?
Who's steering this ship?
Video screen autopilot?
I hope he knows the way.
Really? Autopilot? Because we didn't just have something happen. where we didn't know it could happen, and then it did, and we were in trouble. No, autopilot straight to the core, because nothing unusual is going to happen from here on out. Really? Freaking autopilot? Then why did we even need to hire pilots in the first place if we've got the almighty, all-godly knowing autopilot? Also, all throughout the film, we see stuff drifting through the mantle and moving and shifting, which makes some of the driving sequences really intense. Isn't it rock? Isn't the mantle stone, earth, rock? How is stuff casually drifting about like it's in space? Another long story short, part of the ship is damaged by one of these drifting bits of diamond. It is then shunted off and kicked out the back of the ship, as it's designed to do. Unfortunately, Aaron's buddy, the nuclear weapons specialist, was still inside. What a shame. They finally reach the outer core, only to discover that it's much less dense than they thought it would be. Which is a problem, because it means they need more explosives than they have. Because it's less dense. So they need more explosions. That's just science. The rockstar scientist announces that their mission has failed, and it's time for Plan B. We had a Plan B? Apparently Plan B consists of firing off this earthquake generator that he built. We're also told that this earthquake generator is what actually caused the core to stop spinning in the first place. It would be a big dramatic reveal if it hadn't already been hinted to the audience near the beginning of the film. But let me get this straight. Plan B is the already built, in place, operational earthquake machine that affected the core once before, whereas Plan A is to assemble a craft out of unknown, untested material with an unknown, untested way of traveling to shoot people into the core that we don't know the composition of, to set off bombs that may or may not work because we don't know the composition of them, in the hopes that the explosion will start the core spinning again. That's Plan A. Good choice. In probably one of the most ridiculous, poorly thought out decisions ever made, the crew decides to try and restart the core somehow before Plan B kicks into place, because Plan B has a possibility of screwing up and ending the world. Of course, Plan A has the possibility of screwing up and ending the world, and if you don't do either plan, the world's gonna end. They're really not painting Plan B to be as dire as it seems. Back on the surface, a giant microwave beam has penetrated the Earth's atmosphere and takes out an expensive model of the Golden Gate Bridge. You know, the microwave beams that we were told would be here in a year by all the top scientists. They just arrived 9 months early. You know, the timeline was totally solid. Our heroes have finally constructed a new plan, and I'm going to let them tell it to you themselves.
Hotwire the nukes,
Yes.
as one does. So we seed them through the core at locations that have to be accurate to the inch. We detonate them in a sequence that has to be accurate to the millisecond. Then we outrun the biggest nuclear shockwave in history.
Yeah.
Yeah, if this wasn't a movie, they'd be guaranteed failure. And I'm willing to bet if it wasn't a movie and scripted out, they wouldn't even try it because it's so ridiculously a long shot. Luckily, movie logic! We're getting near the end, I promise. So, there's a new issue where in order to release the bombs, they're going to have to release compartments of the ship with the bombs in them, but the compartments were never meant to be manually released. So somebody's got to crawl into a part of the ship that's 9,000 degrees to flip a lever so that they can be released. Problem is, those special imploding safe suits of theirs only protect them against half that. So anybody who goes in, it's a one-way trip, guaranteed. I would imagine that if you drop me in 9,000 degrees, and even, let's take the suit into account, you drop me in 4,500 degree room, I'm probably going to die before I can do anything. But that's just me. I'm guessing I would boil alive before I was able to take 2 steps, but the movie disagrees, so let's go on. Also, the rockstar scientist is killed stupidly as the film progresses towards its end. Thanks to yet another last-minute disaster, because that's what this movie is. Last-minute disaster after last-minute disaster, our 2 remaining crew members have to sacrifice their fuel rods in order to make the explosion work, which means now they're sitting in the middle of the Earth and they're just going to die because they got no energy. Luckily, Aaron Eckhart remembers earlier in the script where he read that unobtainium converts pressure and heat into energy, which can then be used to power the craft. We were told this when we were first introduced to unobtainium. I believed that that was what was powering the craft, mainly because we were told that's what could power the craft. But apparently it was nuclear powered this whole time. Why? Why do you have this thing that is capable of basically powering the craft and you don't have it powering the craft? I don't understand the purpose to that. Okay, apparently you'd still need a battery when you were like in the ocean and it was cold, but supplementary power? They gotta run through the ship and cut wires and reattach wires just to get the power from the unobtainium to power the ship. Where was that power going? What was it powering before if they had to reroute it? What was the point of creating a power source if it's not plugged in? Okay, we're really at the end now. The core is spinning again. Everything's happy. Our heroes are able to steer a little bit, so they're going to ride the shockwave back home. See, they don't have enough power for the laser, but they can steer still. They don't have a laser, but they can steer, so they manage to get to the surface. Why did they need the laser then? Are they riding back up the hole they made? No, because we see them steering and trying to determine magma flows and go this way and that way. But there's not a straight shot anywhere on this planet between surface and the core. Because if there was, that's how they would have gotten down there in the first place. If they can get out without the laser, then they didn't need the laser to get in. I really hate this movie. The science is highly suspect throughout the entire thing, alright? Highly suspect. And I'm sure if I was a scientist, I could tear it a new one much more easily. The entire plot is, oh no, we've got a problem we weren't expecting. I'll sacrifice myself to save the problem. Oh, it's so sad that he died. Oh God, we've got a problem we weren't expecting. Well, I'll sacrifice myself to save the problem. It's so sad that he died. Oh no, another problem. I even left some of these out because it's basically problem, sacrifice, problem, sacrifice, problem. It's tedious. It's repetitive and tedious. It gets to the point where, oh gee, another person's dead. You can't emotionally connect with these people when you know they're all gonna die. And the same freaking way. Noble sacrifice, noble sacrifice, noble sacrifice, noble sacrifice. Really? So I left out quite a bit of that. I left out the stupid thing where they came out on the ocean floor, but the whales sang, and that's how they got found. I also pretty much left out everything that had to do with the hacker. Which is sad, because I think it's hilarious when Hollywood tries to make hacking look exciting. But the movie was long enough as it was, and so is this review. I'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching WTF Cinema. Until next time, what the f***, man?
Mention of a rock star-like scientist that works for the government. So,